We're live.
All right, good evening. It is 7:01 p.m. on Thursday, April 4th. I hope everyone is recovered from the snow. Got a little more than we were expecting, but it wasn't too bad. I am calling the remote Finance Committee meeting to order. This is 100% remote this evening as town offices are closed. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel and on Facebook Live on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The following information is provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting. To participate from a computer, please use the link attached to the agenda, which can be found on the town website. From a telephone, dial the toll-free number 888-475-4499 and enter webinar ID 832-417-59373. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. I'm going to skip over the Pledge of Allegiance since we don't have a flag available to us, at least everywhere. Are there any announcements from the committee this evening? Ms. Tavares.
Not an announcement. I wonder, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yeah.
Okay, they had technical difficulties. Thank you.
Not a problem. The only announcement that I have this evening is just that our 7th member, Jean Russell, is going to be away for tonight and for next Thursday as well. She was pulled out of town at the last minute and is going to be tied up taking care of some personal business and personal matters. So it will just be the 6 of us. And as a result of that, Ms. Tavares is also not feeling well. So thank you, Ms. Tavares, for jumping on at least for a little bit. So unless there's any large argument against it, I'm going to switch the order of the meeting around and bring the budget discussion and the votes on recommendations forward, and we'll get to the new business after that, just in case Ms. Tavares needs to sign off early. I'd rather have as many people's votes as possible for the recommendations. With that, is there any public comment from the committee this evening? Seeing none, is there any public comment from the public? Yes, the phone number 978-800-1128. Go ahead and unmute. I believe you have to push *9.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hello? Okay, this is Rhonda Lucio, 181 Reservoir Road. I just had a public comment. Throughout the town, we pay user fees for several things. Some examples include water, sewer, trash pickup, and in the not too distant future, we will be charged a stormwater fee. Even some of the town's smaller entities have recognized the need to increase user fees, such as the Parks Commission, which recently voted a modest increase for town beach users. Last week, the Finance Committee presented a bar graph which showed the school transportation costs represent one of the largest areas of increase faced by the district. My question is, how does the school district justify its change in policy, which expanded the number of students who are eligible for busing without charging a penny in user fees? Why were bus fees, which were charged when my daughter was a student, completely eliminated? Wouldn't reinstating fees have been a reasonable way for the district to raise funds within its own budget? I find the district's failure to even consider this option and instead seek to raid funds on the town side of the budget to be tone deaf and offensive. Why is the district expecting all of the taxpayers to fully fund the expansion of its user base? This is just one example of the district expanding services beyond mandates and expecting taxpayers not to notice and basically just shut up and fork over more money. It would take me longer than my 3 minutes to provide additional examples. I agree with the chair of the select board. I do not support the status quo within the school district, and I do not support the override. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Tavares?
Hi, Rhonda and everyone else. I don't have the answer to this, but I wanted to ask a question. Have you asked the school committee that question? Because I don't even.
I actually public commented when they were in the process of changing the policy, and it was my strong recommendation to charge user fees, which the reason they gave was that the fees would not do enough to offset the cost of the transportation. But my argument is it would offset the cost of something else. So there you go. Thanks.
I did not know that, so that kind of helps me understand what their rebuttal was to that question. But unfortunately, I do not personally have any answers, but I would also like to understand a little bit more and have your question answered as well. So I can certainly reach out and ask for a little bit more information on other towns that have such cost structures, but it is something that I am personally very, very unfamiliar with, but thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Bowen? If you're speaking, Mr. Bowen, we can't hear you. You're still muted.
I was
There you
muted.
go.
Thank you very much. Here we go. Yes. So Evan, thank you very much for having me. I have a son who attends Lunenburg High School. So I have a little bit of a say with regard to, I guess, the status quo as raised by Mr. Jeffries. I am also a union supporter and I support a teachers union. I don't have any problem with that. What I do not support is a budget that has no line items on it that you can remove from a school budget, meaning that teaching this or providing this or taking this out or inclusive of anything with regard to like DEI or with regard to specifics where parents are being told that, well, we don't have to tell you because DESE policy says that we don't have to tell you about these things. And as far as I'm concerned, that because they're not line items, okay, parents don't have a say, but if they want to take money from the entire taxpayer base for everything, then the whole taxpayer base has everything to say about what goes on inside the operational function of the school. And I think that that's being ignored, that you want to take money from everybody who doesn't utilize it. And the last caller basically mentioned to that about user fees and stuff like that, which I don't think that is a feasible option to work, to be honest with you. Okay. However, I think that if we have funded schools, then every taxpayer in this town should determine what the school is allowed to teach, who to teach, and how to teach. And right now, with the school committee being separate from the town budget, being its own independent entity, is a serious problem. I'll bet if that was included as an entire town organization in its structure, which under our charter being home rule, we could do that. We don't have to follow the standard process of the state. There would be some serious reeling in of some financials. And I just wanted to mention that I think that, it should be considered that, everybody's talking about consolidation. Why don't we just consolidate the school committee into the entire town's budget and not keep it as a separate entity, but keep it under the guidance and supervision of the select board? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments from the public this evening? All right, seeing none, let's move on to town manager reports. Is there a town manager report this evening? From you?
I do not have a town manager report tonight.
Okay, excellent. And I thought I saw Ezekiel. Yes, is there a finance director report this evening?
I do not have a report tonight, but I'm working on the Q2 reporting. So you should have that either next week or the week after. I had a couple system issues with Munis, but I'm hoping to get that to you ASAP.
Thank you very much. Look forward to seeing that. All right. So again, I'm going to adjust the schedule just slightly so that we can get through as many of the warrant recommendation votes as possible with 6 members, since we can't do it with 7 members. Before we dig into it, though, I do want to kind of gauge the committee's opinion on if Ms. Tavares is not feeling well enough and ends up dropping off. That's 2 members we'd be down for our vote. So personally, I would prefer to stop taking votes at that point, because I think it's a decent chunk of our committee. And at that point, I would sort of prefer to kick everything to the next meeting, or potentially, as far down as we need to go, so we get to at least a larger majority. Any other thoughts on that one?
No, I agree with that, Evan. I do have a question though. Are we discussing the report?
We are, yes, we are. So we have, Tiffany and I were working, or Ms. Tavares and I were working at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, workshopping and putting a small amount together. We've met, I dropped it into the to the FY25 budget root folder,
Okay.
the first draft of it. We've only made it through about half of the 10 bullet points that we have raised when we were outlining and brainstorming before. But I would at least like to somewhat workshop what we have currently, and at least make sure that the language does appear to be non-specific, or at least, I guess, highly specific, non-opinionated, just factual.
Okay, so what then is our expected suspense date on? Is it next week to vote on it?
I think we would have to. I mean, I think you raised this before, Mr. Bernard, just the difficulty of getting a realistic top-down view report put together when we were just presented with the school department budget. Not necessarily to their fault or anything, but we've only just been receiving over half of our budget report as of a week ago, 2 weeks ago. To pull together a full report and an idea as to what our budget looks like and what the town's finances look like for the year is a monumental task within such a small amount of time.
Okay.
So
Yep, I agree.
I'm content at least voting on it next week and workshopping it, to an effect tonight. And then if we have to have it as a printout, then we have it as a printout. It'll still end up in the overall town report later on. Ms. Lemieux?
Yes. So my concern with that is tomorrow was the extended
Mhm.
deadline beyond the original deadline, where that is well beyond the date that I would have to get it to the printer to keep that schedule.
I understand. It was made more difficult with Easter thrown in there as a week over the weekend, and just it's been a very busy budget season, and I want to make sure that what we put forward as a committee is accurate and as concise as it needs to be. So we may be it looks like we'll probably be in the position of having a secondary paper that's on the desk when voters walk in, but there will be at least a report that gets put into the overall town report that gets printed.
Okay, I just wanted to, make sure everyone knew that before that gets sent off and there were no surprises.
I'd
Mass
rather it be
general law
right.
does state that it has to be placed in certain locations 7 days before meeting too, so we gotta follow that.
That's the posting of the warrant, which is done.
I think it's actually the report as well. I'll look for that reference.
Oh. Yeah, it's the actual warrant.
The Finance Committee report also.
Dave, can you get a little closer to your microphone?
I believe there is some separate verbiage relative directly to the Finance Committee report. We'll let Chris look it up. I honestly feel that we should get going on votes on the articles. I'm more concerned about our positions on the articles being in the warrant than I am our letter.
Agreed.
Dave, I
Yeah,
can
I'm-
barely hear you.
He was saying that he would rather get moving on the recommendations for the warrant. And he thinks that those are more important to be in the warrant itself rather than our letter specifically.
And
I'm in
I
agreement
guess
as well.
we could have somebody ask town council if it needs to be reported. If it does, that's great. We have plenty of time. Was it 10 days or so before the meeting? So, we have to get it to where it needs to be. And if it doesn't, then it's handed out at the town meeting. And we can put it on the website, on the town website and all that.
Exactly. Okay.
Mr. Chair, can you hear me better now?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, okay, I'll turn this up a little bit more. I didn't realize my settings were turned down.
There we go. Now we can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So without further ado, I am going to pull up the most recent form of the warrant, which the town manager sent off, loaded up this afternoon. Okay, Article 1 remains unchanged. That is to vote to see if the town will vote to hear or accept regular written reports of the town offices. We voted no direct financial impact. I don't think there's any reason to revisit that one. Number 2, authorizing revolving funds for various departments, boards, committees, agencies to be extended in accordance with Chapter 138 of the town's general bylaws. We recommended approval for that one. That was pretty standard. What is now known as Article 3 is the departmental revolving funds for the local wetlands protection fees bylaw, or bylaw fees. We recommended approval for that one as well. I don't think there's a reason to revisit that one. If anyone does have a reason to stop, just yell out stop and I'll immediately stop and we'll go back to it.
So I have a question. Is throughout this, we had A through Z. Are they now just 1 through 26 or?
I think it's 1 through 25 now because the select board pulled one on Tuesday, I believe. It may be 1 through 26. I don't know. But yes, to my understanding, they are still 1 for 1. A is
Okay.
number 1, B is number 2.
I was just looking through my notes. Thanks.
Article 4, to see if the
One
town will vote.
was pulled. Sorry, Evan.
You repeat
One
that,
was
Mr.
pulled from the warrant on Tuesday.
Okay. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money for payment of prior year expenses or take any other action relative thereto. We deferred on that one. Select board deferred as well. Do we have any known expenses from last year yet?
There is no, none at this time.
Okay. So I don't think there's any reason for us to revisit that. I think we would still defer that to town meeting floor at this point. It'll be a very small amount of money, if anything. Okay, Article 5. To see if the town will vote to transfer from available funds all sorts of money necessary and to amend the amount voted for the FY24 budget under Article 7 of the May 6, 2023 annual town meeting and Article 1 November 14th, 2023 special town meeting or take any other action relative thereto. Do we have any numbers for Article 5?
We do not. We'll be working on this next week. Really waiting for that snow and ice number is the the big number that we need.
Okay. We're gonna remain deferred on that one. Okay, Article 6. To see if the town will vote to raise an appropriate borrow or transfer from available funds a sum of money for the FY25 capital plan as appearing in the capital planning report committee. You recommended approval 6-1. Again, I don't see any reason to revisit the capital article. We would lose one of our votes anyways, but if someone does want to revote, I'm open to at least discussing it. Great. Article 7, the omnibus budget. We voted to recommend approval 5-1 on this one. At this point, again, I don't see a specific reason to recount or revote. Anyone has anything specific they want to do with this one, we can talk about it, otherwise we'll move on to the override. Okay. The override, Article 8. Okay. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate $948,136 to supplement the Lunenburg Public Schools budget for fiscal year 2025, contingent upon the passage of a Prop 2.5 ballot question, or take any other action relative thereto. We deferred this one. I would very much like to get a vote on this one this week, now that we have a little more information from the school department.
Yeah, I'm ready to vote.
I'll recommend we approve it. This is Tom.
Second,
All right, we have a vote to recommend approval and a motion and a second to recommend approval. Before we get into, so I have a 2-slide presentation that tries to get into a little bit more of the double dipping conversation we had last week. Before I show that though, is there any other conversation that anyone wants to have regarding this article?
I would recommend we see what you say.
Okay. So
Oh, more graphs, yay.
no more graphs, no
No.
spreadsheets. I went with bubbles, just happy little bubbles, nothing else.
Okay. Change of pace.
So-
I love it.
Exactly. Maybe we can walk through it with this one. So our starting point this year was to take the final budget, the final number from last year, FY24's budget for the school department of $23,473,214. That is the base budget for FY25. To that number, the town manager recommended a 2.94% increase, or $673,394. That gets us to what was originally and still remains to be called the town manager preliminary budget number. That's what everything started on back in February, of $23,574,522. After that, we have a whole bunch of gap filling going on, a lot of negotiating between the town manager, the select board, and the school department and school committee to try and fill a gap that was identified. And this was the process for that one. So we started off, let me go to my laser pointer. We started off with the town manager's preliminary budget of $23,574,522. There were portions of the school department budget that came out of that line, out of that budget, and there were portions that were added back in as more specific numbers were kind of drilled down by the school department. However, over the process, the FY24 certified new growth of $236,025 was put forward by the town to help fill that gap and is now in the school department budget. An additional $41,361 in local receipts was also put forward and offered to the school department budget. And lastly, the pavement management plan, $50,000 that was originally going to be earmarked for the pavement management plan was pushed over to the school department as well to give a gap funded, what has now been called the needs-based budget of $23,901,908. That number, that since the final number here, the town manager recommended budget number, is what appears in the omnibus budget. That's what the town will be voting on, and that's where we stand today. However, as we all know, I'm sure by now, that still cuts 20.4 FTEs. I'm realizing now that my animations are wrong. The one up here, we'll come to find out. It'll pop up at the end. I think I added it on at the very end. I think it cuts still, I believe it's 29ish, but we'll see in a second. Actually, right here, we don't have to see. Separate from this budget is the override. So this is going to be included in Article 7. And in Article 8, directly after that, is the override warrant article. What that article strives to do is take the town manager's recommended budget of $23,901,908, ask the town to add on another $948,136 to levy, bringing us up to $24,850,044. Was at what is now has been deemed the level service minus ESSER budget. Oh, and there's my number. The original 2.94% increase was a cut of 37.1 full-time employee positions at the school department. So as it stands, if the override passes and those funds go to the school, there's still a cut of 9.4 FTEs. However, since that money was given to the school department, those cuts were planned for way back starting in FY22, but primarily in FY23. So these numbers were known ahead of time. It's the rest of the numbers that weren't necessarily known. So to get into a little bit more of the weeds in terms of the double dipping. So if we start with what's been put forward in the omnibus budget, the omnibus quote unquote needs-based budget from the schools. During the process of coming up with these numbers and the final town manager recommended budget, in addition to these additions, there were some removals from some of the school department lines. Specifically, since this has started, we've had the removal from the preliminary budget of $82,119 from the network security upgrade. We've had the removal of 911 compliant phones for $63,676, and the removal of a reoccurring portion of the Chromebook purchases for $75,895. This totals up to the ARPA funding, $221,640 offered by the select board to cover some of the additional costs. Now, what happened to get us down to this number is that these three categories had to come off of the school's budget. They were on there in the preliminary budget. They existed already. They were cut from the budget to make space for additional shifting of funds to get down to the needs-based budget. However, that means that we are cutting them from the FY26 budget immediately, because the ARPA funds are a one-time chunk of money, and this is going to cut from the maintenance of the building, which is the network security upgrade and the 911 compliant phones. So you're going to chop off about $150,000 roughly there, and $75,000, about half of the Chromebook purchases. So they're already negative for next year. So the FY26 base will start $221,640 underfunded from the needs-based budget. So we'll take the needs-based budget and chop it $250,000 from the start. So that is going to set them up for already a difficult position to fill for next year. If the override does pass, What's included in there is $221,640 to supplant these three costs that have been cut. And as of last night, the school department voted, or the school committee voted to if the override passes, if the ballot passes, they will return the ARPA funds to the select board so that there will not be a double dip of funds. While it does appear to be a double dip on paper, it is a way to sort of ensure that they are need service is level for FY25 and starts at FY26 without being in the hole. So, yes, Mr. Gray, go ahead.
I had one question, because I don't understand for next year,
Mhm.
if their budget is $10, what does that have to do with the budget for the prior year? The 2.5% is for revenue, not for expenses.
Mhm.
Is it that the school committee would feel like, because our budget was so much less last year, we're getting a bigger increase and that wouldn't look good? Or is it some kind of a requirement that every department gets the same percentage increase, or the town manager says 2.5% for every department? I'm not sure why, next year we go, yeah, they got the 221,000 last year and a one-time fee. So we know they got to put more in the budget next year. I just don't understand. Yeah, I'm just not sure why that's important.
To my understand, why we're doing the 2.5% increase on a year-to-year basis, you mean, for them?
Well, yeah, for the expenses, because it's really not, it's not really, at least as far as I know, not a requirement that every department get the same percentage increase, and every department, and that, because it doesn't. So I didn't understand the quote hole will be in next year is based on somehow next year's budget is based on this year's budget. It doesn't have
Only
to
in
be.
the sense that those lines have already been cut from what they were requested to be earlier in the process. The school
Right.
department was originally expecting to cover the network security upgrades and the 911 compliance for phones from their maintenance of buildings lines in their budget already. When the ARPA money was made available to them, that money was taken and moved over to other very vital needs areas to cover that in the time being. But that doesn't take away the need for maintenance of buildings in FY26. So that is why the hole will be there, because they cut it from the budget because it's being filled with ARPA funding this year. But next year, ARPA funding won't be there. So they will
Right.
have a hole, a missing amount of $221,000.
I just don't understand. Why is there a hole? I understand what you just said. I understand that next year they'll still have those expenses, and because the line item wasn't there, it's going to be, hey, it's a big, like next year it'll say, oh, there's a 200% increase in Chromebook purchases. And someone will say, hey, why is that so much? Well, because we used ARPA money for 75,000. Okay, that's fine. Put it in the budget. That's fine. So I don't. I understand what they're doing here. I just, it just doesn't make sense to me why it's necessary. But doing it is fine.
I
don't
agree
have a
with you.
problem.
I agree with you, Tom. I think it's a story that's not really worth telling. And I also say that 2/3 of these are capital items. They're not even something that should be in the operating budget. Chromebooks should, because they're annual purchases. They recur every year. But network security items and 911 compliant phones are over $20,000. They're one-time charges, and we have similar ones on the capital plan. So it's kind of a narrative that I would not focus on, because I think it's just confusing to what could be a pretty simple story.
Right.
The reason I'm focusing on it is just because on the surface, it does appear that they would be double dipping, because if the ARPA funds are awarded and the override passes, they would be double funding these lines in FY25. That's the only
I think
reason
you
why
could
I'm-
say it differently, though, that the request for, which I think is coming up, the 9, whatever the number is, 100,000. We would be returning the ARPA funding so that, you know, that is, it goes back into the budget. It
Correct.
just,
That wasn't decided until, that was decided last night, and I had made this presentation a couple days before that.
okay, yeah, I think we shouldn't be focusing on FY26 because to me, it's kind of like gaming towards next year, in my opinion. It's just like, you know, I should assume that there's no less than 2.5%. So therefore, if I padded a little bit this year, but it's kind of like I don't know, it's a false argument in my opinion. I understand it. Totally understand it. I didn't a couple weeks ago. It was explained at that meeting. No, I understand.
Ms. Lemieux?
I just wanted to add on to everything that's been said. Having been involved in all the discussions with the school superintendent and the school committee chair, and then the select board chair. When I first met with the school superintendent and the school committee chair, we were looking at options, and at my suggestion, because the network security upgrade was a capital item, to pull that out as an independent article. And since then, that has been removed because the select board committed those funds from ARPA for that cost. But like Mr. Menard said, the network security upgrade and the 911 compliant phone systems were considered for ARPA because they are non-recurring costs, capital type items. But at Grey Chromebooks are the recurring cost.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, to the town manager, is that okay under the ARPA rules to purchase a recurring item?
Yes.
Okay, that's all. All I needed was a yes or no. Thank you.
So if we want to ignore the middle portion, if that is fully understood at this point, the last little part here is that this is how we get to the full level service minus ESSER budget at this point, is to take the preliminary budget, add what I'm calling the gap funding, which is that red box in there, which is the ARPA fund, or excuse me, the preliminary fund, the previous funding with the new growth, the local receipts and the payment management. Add in the 145,000 from the utilities, add in the 76K from the Chromebooks, and you end up at the actual needs-based budget, the true needs-based budget.
No, you're fine. I just gotta get my hearing aid back.
Letting someone in. The actual needs-based budget as presented by the school department at 24,123,598. And there were some concerns at the select board meeting, I know, about will they be back next year asking for more money, or is this even going to be enough? I can say at this point that what this does is it preserves the services that are currently in place at the school. It preserves the programs that are currently in place at the schools. It preserves the custodial and paraprofessional needs at the schools. The maintenance is the tricky one because there's a lot that's going to be coming up, and I think that's going to be more on the capital side once Mr. Heavey has a better chance to see how bad the buildings need to be repaired or updated and whatnot. I agree, these are some of these, two-thirds of these are capital projects, but the 911 compliant phones, I think, is a more important one to get out there immediately, where we have some capital projects have been sitting for years and years. They just haven't made it through yet. I don't know if the network security upgrade is a necessary one for an immediate upgrade. I feel that in this instance that given that the schools are willing to give the ARPA funding back, that I think this is how we set them up for progressing in the future and not being able to start off the years behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So that's all I had. If there's any conversation or questions about it, please
Evan, can you go back to the first part of the first chart? Because I think everything here was good. It explains it very well. Pretty simple. Just at the starting point,
Mhm.
23,400,000 plus 600,000 does not
Yeah,
seem.
I caught that as well. It's clearly it's not. So I pulled that from one of the many budgets that have been floating around. I should have checked it. That's my apologies. I did do a 2.94% increase on that one.
Okay.
The increase is correct. The final is correct. I think the starting is incorrect.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Basic math would
Would
do.
dictate that.
Okay. I think again, just my only comment was just fix that, because otherwise I think that this does go through the history very well. It's a good chart.
Yeah, it should be
It's a good chart.
$24,267,613
Okay.
for FY24 budget. I'll double check it. I'll go back. I know the town manager actually has this in her presentation as well for exactly what that number is. I'll update that. Actually, while we're discussing, once I pull these slides down.
And you don't put engineers on FinCom.
Oh, trust, if you really want to get into it, the
No, I don't.
okay, because there's another one too, but it's much more minor. Any other, at least discussion on this, and then we can move to just general discussion on the override as needed. All right. Stop sharing this one. Go back to. Okay. So with that, we have had a motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the override as it's been presented at this point? Any other questions? Any other thoughts? Everyone finally talked out of this?
I'll make a comment, just my opinion on it. I guess I would say that from the FinCom's perspective, I think at a minimum, we should be seeking to have level service across town. And I think across the board with this override, it kind of gets you to level service and maybe a little bit less than level service on a couple of the departments. So it's still not perfect. I've heard the arguments about, well, is it enough for next year? I mean, we'll have to deal with that next year, right? And we'll have to deal with exempt borrowing at some point as well, as if we want to continue to move towards our building projects. But I think that's a next year question. And I think we need to, I don't think we're going to get enough of the efficiencies across town, even with a task force and working everything to get to the 948, 136. So from a purely financial standpoint, and from the perspective of maintaining level services, which I think we should do, I think the right thing is to recommend approval on this, and that's where I stand on it. And I do understand the implications of all that, and I think at one point in my life I had said I would never recommend a Prop 2.5 override, but I think in this case I would recommend it.
I'd have to agree. I think as a finance committee, we should strive to have level services across town departments. That's just that's basic function of government, in my opinion, and delivery of service to our constituents. Ms. Tavares?
I agree with what's being said. I also think that it's important that we continue to ask questions about the line items and the decisions to put those numbers on those line items and how it affects the operations of the school and the teachers and the children and the buildings. So I think given the time of year we're at right now, and this is the 11th hour, this is not the right time to dig in anymore, but I think it's important to continue to dig in the near future and start asking those questions before the next budget season.
Thank you. Any other discussion? All right, so this will be, and all will be a roll call vote. Ms. Tavares,
Yes.
Mr. Simeoni,
No.
Mr. Passios,
No,
Mr. Gray? You're muted, Mr. Gray.
Yes.
Mr. Bernard?
Aye.
And an aye from myself. The Finance Committee recommends approval 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 2.
4 to 2.
4 to 2, thank you. Don't ask us. Yeah, exactly.
It's just simple mathing in heaven, but
Listen, it's been a day.
Mr. Chair, you want to list one as absent on the
I
warrant?
am yep, that's exactly what I'm writing down.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I felt terrible. I was texting the town manager asking, is there any way we can get Ms. Russell's vote in here? Is there any legal way to get it in? And there is not, but we'll make do. Okay, so moving on to Article 9. All right, Article 9 is the changes to the salary administration plan. We found no direct financial impact of that one.
Could I- oh, no, I'm sorry, wrong one. Keep going.
Okay. Let's say, is there really a reason to do this one?
No.
No reason to start that one. So number 10, Article 10 is the updating the schedule for the salary administration plan to change the increases to quickly to remove the first grade, I believe, and or first 2 grades and add on 2 grades at the end, I believe, and an adjustment to the lines to bring our minimum up to just over minimum wage in the state. I recommended approval on that one. Any reason to reconsider?
No.
Right. Article 10, the last SAP one. This is the sick leave for becoming a parent. I haven't read this one to see if it's changed, but the added on portion is if an employee becomes a parent with or without giving birth, for example, because the employee's spouse gives birth to a baby or the employee adopts a child, employees may access up to 8 weeks or 40 days of sick leave. All other available accrued time, such as vacation and personal time, must be exhausted first. However, employees are able to retain up to 1 week of vacation or personal time for use during the fiscal year. I believe that last line, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Lemieux, as Mr. Jeffries was saying, was because it's all dumped at once just at the start of the fiscal year on July 1st. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy if you go on leave in June, how that affects you. In this way, they would at least still have a week available to them, so they wouldn't just lose everything right away. This is my basic understanding of this. Originally, we had voted that there was no direct financial impact. Mr. Alonso, I believe, mentioned that should we have someone on leave and we have to hire a temp, we'd have to pay that temp, and that would cause a direct financial impact. So before we move on, I just want to put that out there and see if anybody would like to reconsider or have a discussion on reconsidering this one.
Yeah, this was the one I wanted to make a comment on, and you prefaced it perfectly. I was at the select board meeting also. I think the point brought up by Mr. Alonso is somewhat valid. But number one, unless we have somebody out for an extended period of time, and maybe 8 weeks is an extended period of time, but for the most part, we don't hire a replacement for anybody in this town when they're out, unless it's a long-term medical, especially workman's comp. Yes, there may be some extra hours by other members of whatever department that person happens to be from. Department heads, in common practice, when they take time for this purpose or whatever the purpose may be, they're still in contact with either the town manager or their immediate department heads under them. So any impact at all with this, I find would be minuscule. But it's up to the board if you want to vote a different way. I guess that's my comments in general. And I also made the comment that this is still an archaic process. The way we handle sick leave and vacation time and any other time off available for employees is archaic compared to the rest of the world. And I think this really needs to be addressed. And the concern brought up that, oh, well, we give our non-collective bargaining employees anything better than this, and the unions are going to say that's not fair. Well, it is what it is at this point, and over time, it'll have to find a middle ground. Those are my comments.
Yeah, and just to pile on a little bit maybe to that, I mean, this is actually just saying what is allowed for sick leave. So someone could have any kind of illness that could take them out for 40 days. And the same things may or may not need to occur. So again, I still think it's no direct financial impact. Yeah, there could be some indirect impacts or something, but.
Well, that's the question I have is what Mr. Alonso said the other night. So there's a possible minor financial impact on the town, possible. So is that enough for us to change? I don't know what the no financial, is that like, what does no financial impact mean? What's the definition? Does that mean that there can't be ever any? Because if that's the case, then it's probably, we should vote on it.
I think it's for us to interpret.
Yeah,
I think
is
we
it?
should vote on it because I do think the indirect financial impact of this is you have to hire a temp. And I am very much in favor of this. And I think this is, I think that this should have already been a thing actually, before today. But I do see Mr. Alonso's point about, it could have financial impact. So I do think we should vote on it because in the event, whatever department is short-staffed and they did need to hire a temp, like it would, you're paying for two things. Having said that, again, I'm all in favor of this and I think this is completely necessary.
Okay, so I offer an option. No substantial financial impact, or we approve it.
I would go for approval.
I
would go for
agree.
approval as well.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll make the motion, we approve, I'll make the motion, we approve that out, whatever, was it 11?
Yeah, Tom,
10.
resend it in the same, resend the original vote in the same motion. I think it would be cleaner.
And to rescind our vote from last week and with new information and make a recommendation, we approve Article 11.
Second.
Aye.
Oh, hang on. Mr. Simeone, you saying something?
Yeah, why? I don't understand why someone should have to use their vacation or personal time for sick time. If someone's a long-term employee with 1,200 hours, they should be able to use their sick time first for vacation or personal time.
It's not the way it's written in our employee handbook. There are other serious problems in there. This just tries to fix one of them.
Yeah, there's a lot I don't like about this at all.
If I'm not mistaken, and this is trying to think of or remember what happens on the municipal side rather than the private sector. They are not required. The town is not required to cut a check for vacation and personal time if an employee leaves, but they are required to cut a check for sick time. Is that correct, Ms.
I don't think so.
Or is it the other way around?
The other way
Vacation
around.
is paid for.
Vacation gets
Vacation
paid
gets
out.
paid for.
Okay. So that would be the reason why, in my opinion, that they would have to use their vacation and personal time because that is money that the town would have to cut a check for if after their sick leave they decide to leave. So then they get to work through the sick time, their sick leave.
There are
Go ahead.
There are also employees that are do sick leave buyout due to how long they've been a town employee and when that changed. So that's within the SAP as well.
When did it change?
I'm not sure when it changed. It was prior to when I came.
Yeah, how many long-term employees we have that would be affected by that.
Do we work the same way, Ms. New, regarding FMLA, and that I know we are required to cover, or in the private sector again, we're required to cover 80%, and then the remaining 20% is required by the employee. Does that fit here as well?
No, separately, there's a FMLA policy, and for those that qualify for FMLA, they would use personal vacation and sick time before it becomes unpaid leave.
Okay. Is
But
that an 80-20?
The
situation as well?
situation may not overlap, like, so that in number 4, it may not mean that they're on FMLA if
Okay.
it doesn't qualify for FMLA.
Okay. Got it.
That sounds like a
Cookies are
smoke
done.
alarm, folks.
It's at my house.
The cookies are done.
Aren't food?
My sister and her husband and a friend are here from Maine because they lost electricity. So they're cooking.
Go ahead, Jay.
Isn't there other, I don't know if it's federal or state, I know in the town I work for, the FMLA, there's this Small Necessities Leave Act, it's the Parental Leave Act, and they're all referred to. And then there's sick leave policy. Seems like a lot of this is already covered by either whether it's state or federal law.
I'm not sure about any of that. I just know that we have a warrant here. And the question is, we have 3 choices: no direct financial impact, approve it or not. We can't modify it. So we have to,
Well,
I guess we ask ourselves, is this better than what was there before, or not? If we don't, and if we think it's not, then, whatever. But to me, we can't, we can ask all these questions, but I don't know if it's gonna, at this meeting, and we're trying to get through this, it's gonna help us get to the, it's gonna help us at all today. I think what you asked is some good questions, but I don't know if anybody here are qualified to answer that.
I do have one question. Why did select board recommend deferral? Is there a change coming?
They were asking for the actual impact, if it could be calculated.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I don't think that was entirely it, and maybe Ms. Emke and Mr. Franco are on tonight. So, but it had more to do with questions about the language than impact, because the impact would be almost impossible to quantify.
Okay. So looking at this as it's written, as it's presented, did we have a second on this one? I know Mr.
Yep.
Graves.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have had a motion to rescind the no direct financial impact and recommend approval. Given that as it's written, I think we need to vote on that one. I agree there's lots of work that needs to be done on this, but I'd like to at least take the vote on this one and just say yes or no, does the finance committee find or recommend this, at least for what it's posted as. So is there any other discussion on it as it's written?
My only question is, can this be changed dramatically or substantially to a point where it may change our minds between now and town meeting?
We could change our recommendation.
It won't be in the warrant, but necessarily, but we will be able to report that at town meeting if there's a change vote. And I can't see how it would change in a financial way specifically.
Yeah,
I could
that's
see them clearing up the language a little bit and trying to make it a little less confusing or a little more specific or put dates or whatnot, but none of that should affect the actual bottom line potential value.
I'm good with that answer.
Okay. All right. Roll call vote then. Mr. Passios,
Aye.
Mr. Simeoni,
I'm gonna abstain.
Ms. Tavares,
Yes.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Menard,
Aye.
and an aye from myself. The Finance Committee recommends approval of Article 11. 4-0 to 1 abstention. And 1
5 to
absent as
0.
well.
5.
My God.
I don't think he has anything to do with it.
You've had a
Is
tough
this
Right.
your appeal to
Mr.
give
Chair.
the schools money that like math is
Seriously.
important?
You know that I work and I do math on a daily basis. That's my job. 5-0 to 1 with 1 absent.
My generation's answer to that would be, you must have done the new math.
No, I didn't. I'm struggling to help my kids. with
Fuzzy
math.
math.
To go back, Mr. Menard, I've fixed these slides, so it is now FY24 budget is $22,878,443, and is now a
Thank you.
2.94% increase to get to 23,574,522. Okay, Article 12. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money into the stabilization fund. We've recommended approval. Don't see any reasons to change that. 13, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to the special purpose stabilization fund or take any other action relative thereto. We recommended approval. Again, don't see any reasons to change that. Article 14. Again, we recommended approval for Article 14, the OPEB trust fund. I don't see any reason to change that one as well. Article 15 was the sewer enterprise fund for, I believe it's $1,712,419.87. Unless that number has changed, we voted to recommend approval. I don't see any reason to change that one. Ms. Lemieux, if any of these numbers have changed, please just stop me and we can address it then.
Certainly.
Article 16, formerly letter P, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to operate the sewer enterprise. Nope, just kidding. Article 16, capital reserve, sewer capital reserve stabilization fund transfer of $35,000. We voted to recommend approval. Again, don't see a need to address that one. Article 17, formerly Article Q, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer available funds a sum of money, which is $500,000, to operate the solid waste disposal program fund for FY25. We voted to recommend approval on that one. Article 18, formerly letter R, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money to operate the water enterprise fund. That sum is $45,000. Again, we voted to recommend approval. Article 19, formerly letter S, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate or transfer from available funds a sum of money totaling $180,843.03 to fund the FY25 public educational government access enterprise operating and capital budget. Taking the other action relative there too. We voted 7-0 to recommend approval for that one. Article 20, or letter T, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $10,000 from the sale of cemetery lots. We voted to recommend approval. Again, I don't see any reason to do anything with that. So that brings us to Article 21 and 22. We voted to defer, or letter U and letter V. Do you know which letter was taken out, Ms. Lemieux?
U was removed.
U was removed. Okay, so there is no longer a U. So we deferred on V, which is now number 21. Okay. So this is the Board of Assessors dropping, see if the town will vote to amend the vote of Article 33 on the May 6, 2006 annual town meeting to decrease the age of the exemption as allowed by Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 541C from 70 to 65 to amend the reimbursement amount up to 100% of the exemption and further to adjust the income and asset limits according to the statute or take any other action relative thereto. So they combined what was presented, I think, is option 3, where they would decrease the age and increase the amount into a single article. So this, I believe, will have a financial impact.
I'll make a motion that we rescind our deferred recommendation and recommend approval of Article 21.
A second?
Second, for discussion, just brief discussion.
Oh, of course, we'll discuss. Okay, motion has
Yeah.
been made and seconded to rescind our deferral and to recommend approval. Is there any discussion on Article 21?
Yeah, ask the town manager to correct me if I get any of this wrong, but I think when this proposal was first brought forward to the Board of Selectmen by the assessors, the age change was, in my eyes, a minuscule amount of about approximately $2,500 that can be easily covered in the overlay balance that we are carrying. And I believe the change in the income, asset limit, so on and so forth, can also be covered by that. And because of the criteria or the requirements to be able to take advantage of these credits, you can almost count the people on 3 hands who are eligible for these discounts.
That is correct.
Okay,
Is this on property tax?
This would be covered through the overlay reserve account.
But it's a discount off the property taxes,
Off what?
off their real estate tax.
is there any additional discussion regarding Article 21? All right, we are roll call vote to recommend approval of Article 21. Mr. Passios,
Aye.
Mr. Simeoni,
Aye.
Ms. Tavares,
Aye.
Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Menard,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. We are unanimous 6-0. We got that one with 1 absent. Okay, articles. What would be Article 22, 23, 24, and 25, we did as a group with no direct financial impact. So I will just briefly, unless anyone really wants to go back through them again. Article 22 is something we should have done and have to do every year, I believe now. Article 26 is just the historical commission. Article 27 and Article 26, Article 24, excuse me. Article 23 is the historical commission. Article 24 is the batteries, and Article 25 is the wastewater reservation district, I believe. Anybody want to revisit any of those?
Nope.
Excellent.
No.
Okay. So the only ones that we're currently deferred on are Articles 4 and 5 at this point. And with any luck, 4 is going to be a pretty small amount of money, and 5 We're waiting primarily for the snow and ice removal numbers to come in. So nothing substantial to the budget itself. All right. Ms. Lemieux, do you need us to submit to you exactly what the votes were? Would that be helpful?
I took them down as you were voting.
Okay, good. So did I, just in case. Okay. That moves us on to the next portion of the agenda, which is we've done that one. We've had the override discussion at this point. Why don't we, if Ms. Tavares is still here, let's just jump into the warrant report workshopping really quickly.
Mr. Chair, could I ask one more financial question while the town manager is still with us?
Sure.
I think I asked this question the other day, but I'm just wondering if the numbers changed. There is a number of dollars in free cash that is floating unappropriated with this balanced budget. Could she repeat that number?
Hold on one second.
Thank you.
That is $216,828.64.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want that for future reference. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. So get this larger. Okay, so this is very unedited. I didn't even have a chance, Ms. Tavares, to go back through and look at it any more than from what we had written. So there's going to be plenty that needs to change with this one. But I wanted to make sure that we did hit all of the topics that we were trying to hit. Open my mail as well and make sure that we did that.
I think we left off today, Evan, with feeling like we were 50% there.
I do as well. Like I said, I wanted to make sure that I wanted to bring it up for the rest of the committee as well. Okay, got it. All right, so our top 10 that we wanted to have on here was a table and graph of the tax increases due to an override, which I've already pulled. I've pulled it down and I have it in a spreadsheet that I will be working on shortly. So it's currently sitting in this file right here, which, like I said, I will go through and change numbers. I'm going to change the tax rate to the new proposed one as well, so we can readjust the numbers, and I'll go through and adjust these numbers. So we'll have them from 250K up to 1.5 million, as well as the average household cost, so the average increase that we can expect to see across the town. And I believe, Madam Town Manager, what are we currently at the Board of Assessors report for the likely tax rate for FY25? Was it 14?
And there's no,
For fiscal 25,
Yes.
the estimated, that was in my presentation,
Right.
and again,
I know
I'll
it's
stress
in there, just-
estimated.
Exactly.
Give me 1 second. I'll pull that up.
Okay.
Without the override, the estimated tax rate would be 1435.
And then with the
That's
override,
with, right, and that's without a change in new growth
right?
or any assessed valuation change beyond 2%.
Mhm.
And the estimated with the override is additional 41 cents, making that $14.76.
76. Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
So I will edit that as well for this one because that's using the 1455. So everyone's taxes will drop technically, in theory, not actually, but on this graph, all of the numbers will actually drop. What the assessed values of the properties obviously is going to be all over the place from the reevaluation, from dropping actually to substantial increases. And then I'll do a side by side with what they can expect to be at the override value of 1476 as well. So that will take care of the first one. And I'm not going to get into anything more other than just here's the table and a graph full so that they have it and you can see it and that's it. And it's nothing but the information. Again, wanted to take everything out of this. The next one was acknowledgement of and reasoning behind the increased line by line scrutiny of each budget by FinCom. So that is addressed. I'll just read what we have so far. So this is the Lunenburg Finance Committee annual report for FY25 preliminary document. The Lunenburg Finance Committee is reporting that Lunenburg's financial position is changing and some post-pandemic effects are starting to show that has financial impact to the town as a whole. In planning for the fiscal year 25, thanks to the town's conservative practice for many years, the town was able to make it through the difficulties of some financial instability. As a result, many of the town's departments are currently operating below their needs level budget. There are positions that continue to remain unfilled for a variety of reasons, causing strain on said departments that are operating without a full staff. Second paragraph gets into the second point there. The process of developing and presenting a budget to the annual town meeting begins in the early fall with the town manager meeting with department heads to discuss expenses, wants, and needs. The town manager then presents the proposed budget to the finance committee in mid-February. Over the following 90 days, the finance committee meets with the various department heads to discuss their individual line item budget requests. This year, the additional scrutiny was given to every single line in an attempt to holistically understand the appropriation of all funds and the impact on the operational elements of all departments. Through the deliberative process, the Finance Committee determined the historic budget schedule may not offer sufficient time for appropriate analysis. The Finance Committee then votes, we'll rework this is an addition, obviously. The Finance Committee then votes on the recommendation of the finalized omnibus budget provided by the town manager and reports to the annual town meeting. As a legislative body acting on the town's behalf, the Finance Committee recommends the approval 5-1 of the budget as presented at the annual town meeting. And then the capital plan we wanted to get into as well. That was the third item. Historically, the capital plan has been funded through free cash, tax revenues, and unspent capital appropriation from prior years. For FY25, the capital plan is funded exclusively through free cash, $1,016,722.36, and unspent capital. This needs to get moved around. We'll fix that. $300,397.52 unspent capital appropriation from prior years. The proposed capital plan of $1,317,119.98 is a 35% decrease from the FY24 capital funding. The reduction in capital plan spending is partly due to the loss of $340,000 of 40S state funds and the allocation of $236,000 of certified new growth being directed to the school department budget. Finance Committee recommends the approval 6-1 of the FY25 capital plan. The next one was to get into the debt spending portion. So preparing the town for upcoming debt spending, we have a policy not to borrow more than 4% of our operating budget for non-excludable debt. We are currently at about 0.7% and falling. So this is the last portion. We made it through the end of FY24. We'll see a 16.39% reduction of our debt service and excludable debt from $3,516,182.23 to $2,939,956.12. This decrease is a result of a reduction in the sewer debt and a reduction in MSBA excludable debt. An analysis run by Unibank in 2023 projected a variety of scenarios to guide the town in debt capacity spending over the next 30 years. In total, the town continues to have $42 million that will be usable while remaining under debt capacity limit. With this number in mind, the Select Board, Municipal Design Committee, and the town will be better prepared to plan for the future. Town policy dictates not borrowing more than 4% of our operating budget for non-excludable debt. Currently, the town maintains approximately 0.7% of our operating budget in non-excludable debt. Other is debt capacity. There currently does not exist a funding source. And that's as far as we made it so far with this one. So that addresses everything except for the Chapter 90 funds and the fair share, the millionaire's tax, which we need to get into. I did hear from Mr. Leighton about where the funds are coming from for the Chapter 70 money, and that goes into the higher education portion, the free tuition for anyone over 25 with an associate's degree. And there were two other points that he had listed in there. I believe it's the free school meals as well, and one other one as well. So we are seeing the millionaire's tax for chapters coming through on the school side. The grant writing services needs to be added into this. A statement of the upcoming town needs in terms of services, buildings, and upkeep. I wonder if we should add in our position on sort of a level service for every department in town position.
I think we should make a statement about level service. That's factual. And also highlight that it does pause increases to the police hiring plan and the road maintenance budget. And any other ones that are eluding me right now, but
I made notes on that right now so that we can incorporate those as well.
That's a good point. Excuse me. And then our request to look into consolidating and streamlining the departments between the town and the schools. And then lastly, statement of the upcoming needs of the town for services, buildings, upkeep, expansion, replacement, salary, et cetera. Kind of taking a look at that level service. I guess that would be filling into that level service need.
yeah.
But so I guess at this point, I know it reads very, very roughly. We need to polish this up quite a bit. But is there anything that kind of stands out as anything beyond just factual information? Or does anything seem factually inaccurate as well? I want to make sure we are correct on everything that we have here.
In the section talking about promoting level funding and talking about pausing the increases in positions to the police department and wherever else those are, I feel there should be some mention that it's also required us to pause needed increases in employee hours to continue and grow services in certain areas. I don't know how to state it, but I think you guys get what I'm talking about.
The list
I
of
do
positions that
understand
the
what you
town
mean.
manager had put out there last week.
Right. Yep.
Okay.
Exactly. I mean, that was part of the give and take to get to where we are. And you know, there is going to be need for something to be done in those areas in the future. We
Right.
can't do them now, but they really, it's really too bad they all got cut.
So I'm making notes on what both of Mr. Menard and yourself, Mr. Passos, have just said, but please do, as you're going throughout your day and your weekend, email notes over so that we can continue to incorporate everyone's thoughts.
Yep.
and we'll continue to work on this so that it's out before a couple hours before the meeting next week as well, so that people have time to kind of read through it themselves. It is currently in our documents drive, like I said. I believe it's in the root folder of FY25 in the budgets folder. It's an editable document, so feel free, please, to go in and make changes to it.
We can't do that, Evan.
No, we can't do that. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Submit.
you shouldn't even show the edit.
Remove
That
it.
you can
What's that?
show it because you're showing it right now. It's a public
Right.
document that.
So I misspoke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Download it, edit it, and then send it over to Tiffany and myself. Do not edit it and put it back
Okay.
into the folder. Wow, I really am getting all this messed up today. So yes, please do not edit it live in the folder, because that is a direct violation of open meeting law. If you're going to make edits to it, take it to your computer and then send it back to Tiffany specifically, not to the entire committee.
And we're gonna continue to try to carve out any time that we have to, get this done and finalized.
If this did want to make the warrant, what would be the absolute drop dead date? I mean, I don't.
Tomorrow.
Going to the printers.
To make it to the warrant, it's the drop dead date is tomorrow. That's the extended date that we were given.
Okay.
Worst case, Tuesday.
Well, we wouldn't. Could we
Meeting
post the meeting for Tuesday?
There's no emergency what's the emergency to call an emergency meeting?
Oh,
An eclipse? We could say there's an eclipse. The sun disappeared and we didn't know why.
but if it was posted
say there's
tomorrow,
no-
why couldn't it?
We
We've
can't post it
already
tomorrow.
discussed this, that we're not worried about it not being. I don't think we need to revisit this at this point.
So
It is what it is.
The town is closed tomorrow, so we can't post tomorrow. So we wouldn't be able to post until Monday. So at the earliest, we would be able to have a meeting would be Wednesday.
Good.
Which, I mean, if there is a desire to have a meeting on Wednesday and then on Thursday, I can post it, but I feel like we've hit our quota for hours for this year already.
Well, if you did it on Wednesday, you still wouldn't meet
We'd still miss the date, right?
Yeah, so it doesn't matter. So if we can't do it Tuesday and it's not an because it's not an emergency, then we've already, as Dave mentioned, I guess we'll just have to, put it in that after the fact.
I would like to at least try to get a finalized vote on it on next Wednesday or next Thursday, though.
I agree.
What we could do is share it on the website and through social media when we put the final booklet up.
I think that
Okay.
would be great if that's an option. I think we ran into timing issues because it really wasn't much time, and having a holiday last weekend, Evan and I originally talked and we had plans. We were going to make this happen on Sunday, and then we said, oh wow, like it's a holiday, and that's a lot of that's on me. I didn't even know there was a holiday until we had meeting on Thursday. So maybe it was mentioned to me and just filed in the back of my brain, but my time got redirected.
Okay, I think this is a good start, and I think the topics we talked about. If I think of anything else in the meantime, I'll fire it off to you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So that moves us on to the only other thing we have for old business is FY25 budget discussion. I'm pretty sure. Oh, Mr. Vars, you have your hand up. You have a question, or was that from before?
Yeah, I am gonna log off, but thank you everyone, and I apologize leaving the meeting early. This is kind of hit my final wall, so thank you all for everything, and I will see everyone next week.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. All the work
Thanks,
you're doing.
Tiffany
already.
Philo.
Thank you.
Thanks.
feel
Have a
better.
good night. Thanks.
Night.
Okay. So again, the old business, the only thing that's left in here is just an FY25 budget discussion, which, as far as I'm concerned, we've kind of already had, unless anyone has any other discussions they want to have about the budget currently.
Want to start FY26?
Might as well. I've got the baseline number already. We can calculate the levy. Okay, hearing none. There are no new minutes in the drive. I haven't even had a chance to look to see if we've edited. I know we have one on hold. I'd say we just continue to have it on hold, and I'll try and take a look at it this week and make the adjustments that I believe Mr. Passios was talking about. Are there any committee reports?
I've got one from Green Communities. It'll be real quick. We finally met Monday night after 2 missteps on posting meetings last week. So we organized, which is something that's been on the table for quite a while. So we do have a chair, vice chair, and a clerk. Also, we thoroughly discussed and are moving forward with hoping to get into the April grant round with the Sewer Commission's project, which is going after funding for the pump upgrades and the controllers for those pumps in all their pumping stations. There is a little concern as to whether there's going to be enough savings, energy savings. They're still trying to calculate that out. So we're just crossing our fingers and waiting for that last number. And then the application needs to be in, I believe it's either May 10th or May 15th. I think it's May 10th. The other little small piece in that is we have set aside $5,000 towards the next police cruiser that will be purchased. There are 2 more hybrids that will come online, one this year, one next year. That's where we're at. Oh, and then just so everybody knows, there is an increase in the maximum amount that can be awarded in this grant round. It's $225,000 instead of $200,000. That's it.
But Dave made me remember we should add something about the grant writer to the report.
Yes, it's on. I have it on the list as well.
Oh, okay. I missed that then.
Yeah, I had sent Tiffany our list of 10 topics
Okay.
when we started this, and number 9 was the grant writing services. So we still have to get to that one as well. And number 10 is the consolidation and streamlining of departments between town and the school. So that will get on there as well. Do we want to address Ms. Emke's suggestion of the task force, budgetary task force?
Yeah, I mean, we had talked about something similar to that earlier in the year as well, so I think
we should at least put it on there.
Is that something they voted to do? The select board?
No, it's something.
No, they're going to
the-
deal with it after we get through this part of the season.
Yeah.
Then I would agree with Mr. Menard that we recommend that be done.
Okay, I'll add on the 11th one.
so for committee reports, Parks met a week or 2 ago. I forget. So blurring together. They did vote on their recommendations for the owner's project manager for Marshall Park. So now I think it goes to town manager to negotiate based on those recommendations. And then just as a service announcement on that, they are doing a bunch of cleanup days, and weather willing, there's a discussion at the beach. There's a project at the beach house this weekend that was looking for volunteers as well. So, you know, one good way to help the town is to volunteer on things, and there are some opportunities coming up. I think that's on their websites for to sign up to volunteer for stuff.
That's the Earth Day cleanups, right?
Yep.
Yeah, there's the dog pound, or there's the Pound, there's a whole bunch of them, the beach, a couple different conservation areas, trail marking, trail cleanup.
Yep. And then if you want to do it on your own, I think DPW gives you another slightly different yellow bag to pick up trash around town and
Are you getting
I guess
corrected
the
live?
beach house isn't on that sign up. I just got notified, but if anyone wants to help with that, they're tearing up rugs and getting it ready. Again, trying to save costs through volunteerism.
Thank you. Any other committee reports for the evening? All right, topics for future meetings. Anything offhand anyone wants to get into after all of this is done, other than what we currently have listed and what we've taken down before? Fantastic. Upcoming meetings, we are scheduled to have our regular April meetings on the 11th and the 25th. I have not put in a request to have a meeting on the 18th. That's school vacation week. I'm not sure where people are going to be. I don't see us needing to be holding an extra meeting since we do have the vast majority of our articles are actually voted on. We're only missing those two, and like I said, they're small money articles that are pretty standard. So I'm fine having our 4/11 meeting to finalize our report and possibly vote on those last two articles, and then we may not need to have our 4/25 meeting at all at this point. Unless anybody wants to meet on the 18th, I'm happy not to. And then on March 4th or May 4th, Star Wars Day, is the annual town meeting starting at 9 o'clock at the middle high school. And 2 weeks after that is the town election. And with that, I will open up for a final public comment from the public this evening. All right, seeing none, is there any public comment from the committee?
I'll just say thank you to all for working through this over the last few months. Hopefully it's not like this next year.
I would absolutely echo that. Thank you to all of the committee members for your extra long hours and extra looking at this, all the work you put in this year. I appreciate it. And thank you to the department heads and town manager and the school committee and school department for pulling everything together. It's been a slog, but at least we've finally got things, I think, nailed down. Exactly 1 month ahead of town meeting. But I know it was a large lift, and I do appreciate it. And now we can move forward and go to town meeting. With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion's made and seconded. Roll call vote. Mr. Passios.
Aye.
Mr. Simeoni.
Aye.
Mr. Gray.
Aye.
Mr. Menard.
Aye.
And an aye from myself. It's 8:40. We're back to those meetings. Thank God. Everyone have a great evening. We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Take
night,
care.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.